have been asking, where is Mwalimu? Bring back Mwalimu. Here you are.
I'm always here.
Yes. Tell me.
Yes.
Riggy G is causing the government sleepless night. He's climbing the mountain in the US.
I like your choice of words, but Riggy G is definitely no longer causing anybody sleepless nights. Because Riggy G is self-destructing and he probably doesn't even know. I have noticed of late he has gone back to his usual ways of gaslighting the people back home here to think some of the things they are doing are wrong. No, they are not wrong. This is the same Riggy G who is now telling us that he has asked the Gen Zs to stop the street protests. This Gen Z, this Riggy G once told us those people have no leader, have no party, and have no tribe. I don't know what Riggy G is saying the last time they went on the street protest, why there were no protests outside Kikuyu land. Did it mean that only the Kikuyus have Gen Zs? Nevertheless, outside there in the US, Riggy G went to the US as a Mount Kenya team, not even Mount Kenya, as a Kikuyu team, because the deputy delegation leader was Martha Karua. When they arrived in the US, they actually began their journey talking in Kikuyu, eating Kikuyu food, and even praying in Kikuyu. But back home, people talked. And when he realized, people had realized that it is his own personal tribal delegation that he has exported to the United States, he quickly arranged so that some of his team members follow him there to make it a national thing. Because people out there do not know about tribes that Riggy G knows about here. So they were wondering why they are in the US and they are talking Kikuyu. Why they are in the US and they are singing Kikuyu. Why they are US and they are talking in the mountain. Why they are US, they are talking Jamii and community. And that is why Riggy G is changing tune, and he organized very quickly for some members of his opposition team to join him there. That is what he has done. And actually is trying to mend fences as things go on. But I think realizing that he did not achieve what he went to do, because the Gen Z out there in the US will not accept your begging bowl if you come there in a tribal manner. Because them, they don't know about tribes. Them, they have suffered under the hands of racism there. So you are not going to tell them you are talking about a single community and you are calling it Kenya. You are talking about the mountain and calling it Kenya. Nobody is going to accept that out there. People who are out there are not like the ones here, who are largely uninformed, who are largely uneducated, who are largely dependent on their communities. Those people know what is good for Kenya. And if you go there as a Kenyan leader, and you carry only your tribesmen, your clansmen, and you have left other parts of Kenya, you are definitely not intending to be a person who is going to govern Kenya.
But it is the same people, his tribesmen, are the ones who invited him there.
No, they invited him because they definitely would want one of their own to govern Kenya. But when he arrives without Kenya. He arrives with his clansmen of the village here. You know, you may want somebody to be president, or you may want to listen to him, because those people may have not really called him as a Kenyan leader. They want to listen to him because they hear him talking from far. You know what happens? Internationally, people tend to know what is happening in a country by monitoring the local media. Unfortunately, the people in the US also realized there is something not right with the Kenyan media. You would find from morning people wake up and it is attack on the government and the president until people go to sleep. So they wanted to bring this Riggy G near them and listen to him. And when they listened to him, they found the chief of tribalists has exported tribalism to the United States. Is embarrassing them in the middle of nowhere. They are wondering why another president came from another country and went to the US, and Trump had to comment, your English is #1. But this one was not speaking English. He was speaking a language which Trump could not even know it was from which country. So I think Riggy G himself is on a self-destructing mode. He's being killed by the very thing he believes in, tribalism.
But look, Mwalimu, Riggy G goes to the US. He assembles the members of the Kikuyu community, and he's telling them that they are the ones driving the economy in Kenya, that it would even be better at one point they stop their remittances so as to frustrate President William Ruto.
If he were to frustrate President William Ruto, President William Ruto doesn't own Kenyans. Kenyans do. So he should have just used the correct language that he wants to frustrate Kenyans. Because Kenyans are used to being frustrated by politicians seeking their own political ends. You remember recently there was a girl who was killed in Kiambu, 12-year-old, during the burial. The mother spoke about 4 things. He told the members of the opposition who are gathered there that, why did you come here? Wasn't there anything you could have done before this to avoid this catastrophe? She also told them, let this be the last time you are sacrificing blood for political ends. Those are the things she told them. So, a grieving mother will tell you the truth even if the media wants to hide it. Even if the politicians want to hide it. She will tell them. She told them they are the ones who killed her child through political sacrifice. And they could have averted it by calling off that unnecessary protest. That mother said the truth there. She never blamed the government, and she never blamed the police. She blamed the very politicians who are seated there, who are even denied a chance to speak.
But Mwalimu,
that is how truth manifests itself when danger appears at your doorstep.
Mwalimu, don't you think anybody trying to undermine Riggy G can do that at their own risk? Look at the kind of massive crowds he's able to pull in the US. Look at the kind of reception that he got. Has gotten the president scared.
Let me tell you something which you'll take home. If you go to a livestock market, people have brought goats, they have brought cows, they have brought donkeys, and you have brought there a monkey. You will attract a bigger crowd. But at the end of the day, the buyers will buy the goats, the cows, and the donkeys and go home and leave you with your skunk there at the end of it all. At the end of it all, what Riggy G has sold in the US is his tribalism, his disdain for other people, his entitlement as a Mau Mau grandson. That is what he has sold to those people. Now they know him. And that is what happens when you take a skunk to the market. You attract very many onlookers. In the end, you remain with your luggage. That is what happens. So, Riggy G is not somebody anybody should fear. In fact, from time to time, we are beginning to discover his tricks. Now, we have gathered that he's the owner of Gen Zs. Recently, we gathered that he was the mastermind of the so-called abductions, where the police even started calling even legal arrests by the police abductions. Anything that happened was abductions. There were abductions, but they were done by the opposition. That they were using circumstances under those abductions to prove that there is actually abductions, because people would disappear and reappear. Those people disappeared and reappeared. Those ones were done by the opposition.
Mwalimu, you cannot say that when the president, none other than the president himself, came out and said that their abductions are going to end, and that those who were abducted are now with their families. How did he know that?
The president said that because it is responsibility of the government to end any form of crimes, including the ones performed by the oppositions, including the ones committed by the opposition. So the president was just doing his duty of providing security to Kenyans. And true to his statement, we finally investigated and found an MP who abducted himself. We investigated and found another Gen Z who abducted himself. So 2 is enough example. 2 is enough evidence that these abductions, some are self and some are done by the opposition. And let me warn Kenyan Gen Zs. When you see these members of the opposition pushing you into attacking the government daily, into enmity with the government, it is not the government that is going to harm you. It is them who are going to harm you and blame the government. And this is what I need to teach you. When you see a death occurs, if you want to know who has committed the murder, ask yourself question number 1 before any other. Who stands to gain the most? Once you know who stands to gain the most, you are already on the path to finding out who committed the murder. No governments will murder anybody for no reason.
Mwalimu, let me ask you, everything that President Ruto touches goes haywire. Look at whatever President President Mwai Kibaki gave us free primary education. Your president is messing up everything. He's now saying that it's no longer sustainable.
When you say whatever the president touches goes haywire, you are just playing into the hands of the partisan media we have in Kenya.
Is that not the truth?
Anything the president touches they want to demonize it. What we do in politics is this. You demonize your opponent to an extent that people begin to say, sisi hata tukipewa umbwa tutampigia kura lakini si huyu. When people start saying that, the opponent has reached a time when now he can declare who is going to run against you. Because whoever it is, even if it is a dog, now is supposed to beat you. So this is what they do because there's something called hate. Hate is an emotional issue that impairs judgment. So they build hate against you. Look at when President William Ruto announced vaccination of livestock. They said it was wrong. Everything the president wants to do, when the president is building a church, just like King Solomon did, now that is wrong. So they will say everything he does is wrong. And when you tell me about the education funding, and this is something that is very technical, I want people to listen to me very carefully. When Mwai Kibaki introduced free primary education, it was very cheap to do it because even without it being reduced, the cost of providing free primary education was so cheap. In any case, teachers were already employed anyway, so nobody was going to pay them any extra money. They were all largely day schools. So the capitation was very small. But when Uhuru attempted to introduce free secondary education, he failed terribly. And many times the capitation was never in schools and it was never enough. And it was only for day schools. Then now, when President William Ruto is trying to tell you the truth, that what we have is not enough to give us 22,000 per student. But what we have is giving us 17 per student. Not that it is the president who allocated that money. The Treasury and the Ministry of Education gave enough budget to give each student 22,000 per student. But when it went to Parliament, the Budget Committee reduced the 22,000 to 17. What they did, they reduced the total amount for funding education to 56.4 billion. And when you divide that to the number of students who require it, it comes to 17 billion. Giving us a deficit of 13 billion. This 13 billion is the same amount of money we can easily get from the CDF bursary fund, so that we don't have to wait with money at the MP's doors to go and give bursary, so that we don't have to go begging MPs for bursary. Because the money the MPs have for bursary is 23 billion. It is 40% of the total cost of the total CDF they have. So it is very easy to still achieve universal free secondary education by the MPs surrendering just 13 billion, surrendering just 20% of the CDF to capitation in schools. In any case, that CDF is being put there with bursary in it to ensure that those who don't get free education gets. The easiest way to do it is for all MPs to surrender 20% of CDF for capitation of free secondary education. And we are done. They are the ones who reduced the budget. They are the ones who reduced it because they wanted that money in their kitty.
I hear you, Mwalimu. My question is this.
Yes, your answer is
why
yes.
Not take the money from the affordable housing and use part of it to subsidize the money that we need in the education? Mwalimu, between educating a small boy or that young girl, give him empowerment so that he is able to buy his own house in future, and scattering his opportunity to learn and have the ability to live in a good house by himself and building the house for the father, which one is more important than the other?
Because I don't want to shock you and I don't want to be disrespectful to you. First of all, you know, affordable housing is its own fund. It is affordable housing fund. It cannot go to education. It is not even in that budget you see there. It's not there. Number two, we would have gone in to remove that affordable housing, borrow it or whatever you wanted us to do with it. If there was no money, there is money. And the money that I'm saying is there is for education. 40% of the 58 billion that is for CDF is meant for education. 20% of it is enough to plug this shortfall of 5,000 per student. And that is 13 billion. It would still leave MPs with another 10 billion to give us bursary if they want to give bursary. MPs are the culprits in this game, not the president. They are the makers of the budget. They are the reducers of the capitation for free secondary education, and they are the owners of the money that can plug this budget, because that is the only other place where we have money for education that is being controlled by individual MPs.
I hear you, Mwalimu.
So these individual MPs, 290 of them, must surrender part of that bursary to give 100% universal secondary education.
Thank you, Mwalimu. Think of this. Over 44 billion we cannot account for from the e-citizen. Isn't this enough money to finance our education system? And this was coming from none other than the Auditor General, that this money is not ending up in a consolidated account.
You know, it is only in Kenya where people think the president can lie, but the Auditor General cannot lie. Auditor General is already part of the conspiracy against President William Ruto by the new Mau Mau. She is one of them. Some of the things she says, I do not expect from a respected Auditor General. I do not expect. People should know exactly where those deficits are from. And sometimes, Auditor General can tell you something, and when you go and look at it, you find it's actually there.
But the government
But
has not
I also
denied.
must tell you, the way the Auditor General is acting today, I remember one time when the former Auditor General Ouko flagged the Eurobond. Uhuru came out and ranted 1 hour. And that guy wanted sanity to come into auditing. But this one of ours here is talking about 44 billion is unaccounted for. When it is accounted for, it is only that the system delay. You know, let us be honest, people. If we want to remove President William Ruto from office, let us remove him fairly. But we cannot have a media that from morning to evening, there is nothing good. There is a newspaper in this country called The Standard. Lists all the 100 copies day by day consecutively in the last 100 days. There is exactly none talking negatively on the headline on the president or on the government. Nothing. Is it that possible? Is that really possible? And this is William Ruto that has not come from space. This is the same one who was Minister for Agriculture. This is the same one who has been with us here for 10 years as a deputy president. What has suddenly changed? Nothing. The only thing that has changed is that some people have ganged up believing that it is only them who can govern this country and they must go. And they are saying he must go and they have no alternative. They have not told us who it is. Because they know if they tell us the alternative, we will punch holes into his character.
Mwalimu, we are discussing the alternative, but before we come to that, we are Kenyans, Mwalimu. It's simple logics. It's not rocket science. We get reports from the government, you know, institutions saying that we have ghost schools, you know, since the days of Mwai Kibaki, the days of Uhuru Kenyatta. Don't you think it would be the responsibility of President William Ruto to have these people who have, brought these ghost schools with ghost students receiving money from the exchequer, locked up in jail so that we have enough money to go to the rightful students?
Thank you very much. Even those ghost schools, even Kibaki would have loved to finish them. Even Uhuru would have loved to finish them. Even President William Ruto loved finishing them. They want to finish it. Why are they not finished? Even Jesus started by trying to finish uhalifu, theft, and they have not ended today. Human beings stealing, you will never end it. So to take something that has been with us since Jomo Kenyatta and want President William Ruto to go home for it is, I think, being unfair. Because even the person you want to bring, whoever it will be, will not finish it. You can only fight it. Do you think these ghost workers, ghost schools, ghost everything began another day? In Homa Bay, my county, there are 200 hospital institutions. But if you count them on the ground, they are less than 120. Nobody finishes these things. Nobody. You just fight them. Because a thief, even in your house, you could be having a thief and you'd like to finish and you can't finish.
But when they are campaigning, they are telling us that they are going to finish only until they get into the offices. That's when they tell us that they are unable to finish them.
Tell me who is not campaigning with that so that we can elect him president. This Riggy here, who is now all over the place, was with Ruto saying all those things is now denying. He was even louder than President William Ruto during the campaigns. What has changed? Let's Kenyans, let's be logic. But let me tell you one thing, and probably the last one. Issues of emotions impair judgment. Be it love, be it hate, be it anger, and be it jealousy. They impair judgment. So this is what the opposition is building against President William Ruto. They are building anger against him, hate against him, and all those things, so that the society judgment is impaired. You find a young man, 24 years old, telling me, Ruto is so bad that even if you are given a dog, we will elect. Because somebody has preached to him that. Let me tell you, the word of mouth can change you from a normal man like you into a mad one overnight. Until you go to Shakahola and say, I've left my property on earth, let me die. Not because you have seen something good, just because you have heard the preacher. This is the gospel Riggy G is preaching. In fact, Riggy G would have become a very good preacher, together with his team, to preach any gospel. He can preach to you that you are not a human being, you should die until you die.
Is President Ruto good?
Very good. I don't think Kenya would ever had a president like William Ruto. If you saw the things the other presidents did, look at Kibaki, that some people think was an angel. This is the person who raided the media, walked into a media room and pulled wires and slapped journalists and went to the printing press in industrial area and pulled newspapers from the press. Afadhali William Ruto will write a letter and say, I have stopped this.
But they are saying he must go.
But they are still saying he must go. I remember Uhuru Kenyatta. His vehicles ran through protesters in the streets here. And we think that was a good person. Ruto, who even accepts to take his policemen to court, is the bad one. Because you people have refused to see the conspiracy by people who believe it is only them who can govern this country. This country should be governed by all of us. And what I will tell Kenyans today, the only thing that will stop this nonsense is having a rotational presidency. Once your community has been president for 10 years, you take a break for 40 years or 30.
Thank you.
So that we have a country where people wait for us to finish. But these people arranging themselves on the line, even if you made Matiang'i the president today, or Maraga, or whoever it is, these people who believe it is only them who can govern this country are still many. They will never let him rule. They will do what they are doing to President William Ruto to them.